Hi, friends. Welcome to another episode of Soaring Through Chaos. And the reason we do this is to share. These are challenging times in the middle of the pandemic. And whether we believe the pandemic is real or not, many of us are locked down. Many of us are wondering about jobs. Many of us are wondering about the health and happiness of our friends and family and the divisiveness that's all around us because of all these contradictory things that are happening. In the midst of all this, I find that people are able to build community, people are able to find serenity, and there are many of us who are trying to build a cohesive, meaningful, purposeful world. One of them is my friend Mona Vijaykar, who I got to know over the last more than 10 years. Hi Mona, how have you been?
Hello.
And
I've
coincidentally,
been,
both of us came with yellow clothes today, so it was
yeah,
not
same to
planned.
same.
So,
uh,
Mona, tell us about your life. How did you end up becoming this person who has been out there in community, directly with absolutely, it's like what you see is what you get with Mona. And tell us where you live, tell us about your life story a little bit.
First of all, Shankar, this is such an honor. I mean, I see all the people you interview and I go, wow, what are you asking me? I mean, who am I? But I think it's great that you see so much in people that you have, that you want to share and that you want to look deeper into people. And that's the beauty that in you, that is what you are. And in fact, I keep telling you that someday I want to do an interview where I can talk about what you are and share that with my friends. Uh, but my God, you have to ask me about my life now when I have so many years behind me. That makes it so much tougher. If you'd asked me 30 years ago, it
Or
would have
just
been
keep it 10
easier.
minutes, not the whole life.
Okay, all right. So you've given me 10 minutes to talk about. What is this? I mean, I'm getting to know myself. That's really what it is. I've become a friend of mine now over the years because I think when you're growing up, you have a lot of diffidence, and so growing up is basically becoming confident, feeling comfortable within your own skin, uh, just being happy, and that is really what I have discovered. That joy of just being who I am, and I see the change in me. The same Mona who was in school, not very sure of herself, and I was not as the person that you see today. I was definitely not this person. I may have been friendly, but very shy inside. So that's really who I am today.
And where did you grow up? And what was it like coming to the United States, to the San Francisco Bay Area? What was your journey like?
So growing up, my mother was in a transferable job, so we moved around a lot. I didn't stay in one school for more than 2 years, and so when I was growing up, I felt really, really miserable about that because I could never make any solid friends. And I always sort of told my parents that that was not fair to me. But now, when I look back and I find the number of friends that I have on Facebook, they're all people whom I've reconnected with, and all the people whom I've grown to know over the years, and whom I've reconnected with. So, to me, now looking back, that was really a blessing. And so that also teaches you something to adapt to. But I think the one word that I would use for myself is the word hungry, because I guess I was the only daughter, so I was always hungry for a sister, hungry for acceptance. So that was there, and that was part of my driving force, wanting to be appreciated. um, until as I said, I felt more and more comfortable being who I am. But that is what something that drove me. So grew up in many, many, many cities across India, and then went to college at NID in Ahmedabad. that's where I went to study visual communications. And but then I wasn't there for very, very long either. I left NID after about 2.5 years and joined JJ School of Applied Arts, and that's where I completed my design education and immediately went into advertising. So was lucky to be at Lintas, which is one of the leading agencies in India. I got to work with some amazing people there in Lintas. So that's where I was an assistant visualizer. So we worked with the art directors, and we were so I got that exposure to the world of advertising and design, and then moved from there to America when I got married. And that was really, my life just changed when I came here, because America was not at all what I expected it to be. I thought this was a place where, people come from all over the world, and we come here and party, and we're all, when I say party, I mean that people connect with each other. And I found that I came into a recession. And when I arrived here, there was this, in '83, there was a recession going on, and people weren't as nice as I would have wanted them to be. So there was a lot of prejudice and stuff, which I was very sensitive to. I mean, there are people who came here at the same time, and I guess they sort of, they took it in their stride, but it was a shock for me that there are people in the world who cannot accept you. And I came from back home in India, I was friends with everyone in college, and, so never knew what it was like to be isolated, and for people to sort of treat you as if you're some dumb person who doesn't understand what's what, you're from some dumb country. So it that sort of built up in me that suffocation. And that's when I began to feel like, there's something not right about the way things are here. We need to speak up. We need to make our presence felt in a way that people understand us better, and that they respect us as Indian immigrants. And then I saw this whole, I don't know, I'm going ahead of you, maybe. So I'll let you.
No. We want to hear you. For a change, I'm going to keep my mouth shut and I'll listen.
No, because once I get started, I can go on and on. But yeah, so this coming to this country really made me think that, I sort of saw myself as an immigrant, and I'd never known what that feeling could ever be, that feeling of having to prove myself as a person, because in India I was in this privileged part of society, and so I could be, I could be who I was. And here there was, I had people tell me to go back to where I belong and things, which really took me by surprise. And then my kids came along, and that's when I found that I saw other children, not my kids, but I saw a lot of children dealing with this whole the dual identity, the Indian American identity, and I found that there was this confused situation. We call them ABCDs, which I feel is very, very demeaning, because it's not their fault for being confused. And I always say that it's because of the IBCDs, Indian-born confused deshis, that you have ABCDs. So I wanted to do something to give them a sense of identity and pride, and I feel, and also to bring Indian culture on par with Western culture, because I feel like everywhere there was this Eurocentric attitude in textbooks, in storybooks. Everywhere there was no awareness about our heritage or background, and so the children had nothing to relate to. You take them to a library, there was nothing there that they could relate to. So, and that's when I thought that I'm a graphic designer, and so, as Gandhiji said, be the change you wish to see. I said, well, why don't I write books So that's when I wrote the first Indian American children's books called The V Family, and illustrated and wrote the series of books for children. And it was all based on, trying to understand themselves, like, who am I, why is my name different, or why do I look different? That's what those books were based on.
Sorry for interrupting you there, Mona. Do you have something you can share? Maybe the pictures from that book. Do you have a copy?
I do have copies. I can quickly bring them. Or so here's the thing. I started with wanting to create ABCDs, American born confident Desis. That was my whole objective, And for that, I realized that you need to have a multi-pronged approach. You can't just do one thing. You need to have all kinds of different media through which you can create this kind of confidence. And so one of them was this, writing these books. So this was the first book that I wrote. I don't know if you can see it clearly, but
Yeah.
So this was in this book. It's the family comes. Both of us come to America, and and then here I have a situation where. Somebody asks me why I don't go back to my country. And that really shook me up, because, I never felt like anyone could actually say something like that to me, because I saw myself as a visitor here. I never saw myself as a citizen of America. So I felt like, how can one be so rude? But, obviously to the Americans, it was, a threat at that time, because it was recession time. So they just weren't very happy. So this was my answer, because this is somebody, a friend of mine explained to me that, well, everyone came from all over the world to America. So if they all went back, what would happen? And so this was my, answer to that. And I think this sort of really struck home to a lot of the readers. I saw this has got some good responses on this particular illustration. And then I wrote the second book, which was Tom. Little V wants to be Tom, Nick, or Harry, and this is because of the pressure to have to anglicize and change your name. So, this is where Nikhil is very clear about the fact that his name is Nikhil and not Nick. So just things that where the child is encouraged to be confident and not feel pressured. And so then that sort of started me off on a lot of different projects. 2 years later, I wrote a play called Watch Out for the Indosaurus, and that was the first production at the Fremont Main Library when it was newly built. And we had about 50 children, and it was a full 1.5-hour musical that I wrote in English. So the whole idea was to showcase our cultural skills that the children had, because a lot of the kids learned various things like tabla and music and dance, Kathak and Bharatnatyam, but they didn't have a platform to show it to their peers. So it was always, I call them closet Indians, because they would not share their talents with anyone. So this was a play that I wrote for them to be able to share. And the theme song was Take the Best from All That You See, put on your ghungroos or your ballet shoes, bring out your tablas or your pianos. So it was really basically to bring it on par with their Western identity. So that's how, and then slowly, so these, one after the other, I came up with ideas to bring this cultural identity and awareness about the Indian civilization in American society. So then after the play, the next thing that I did was founded a sort of school program, a teacher assistance program called India in Classrooms. And there, the whole program was based on the 6th grade curriculum. So actually, to give you a little background, in 2003, I found out that our textbooks did not represent the Indian civilization accurately. There was a lot of misrepresentation, stereotypes, and things in the textbooks. So I sort of started and spearheaded this whole movement to change what's in the textbooks. And then there were groups all across the country that sort of got in touch, and we all worked together to try to make those changes. But I found that that got very political because, we were dealing with all kinds of people with different agendas. So I decided to back out of this whole thing and work on my own. And so that's when I founded this India in Classrooms. And I started taking my slides, which explained what in the real basis of this was to highlight ancient India's contribution to modern civilization and India's significance to world history. That is something that was not known, and it's not there in the textbooks. So that's what I wanted to go from. So I went from school to school, classroom to classroom, with my slides and lectures. So that's really what my focus was, to bring awareness about the Indian civilization. And
what I really like about your approach, Mona, your approach has always been about inclusivity. It's been about bringing things together, not saying that we are better. No, none of that. I remember we did a short workshop, a day long, called, what was it? Embracing the Rainbow.
yes.
Embracing all the colors,
that was
not just yellow.
Workshop. Yes. That was
so
a lovely
amazing.
workshop.
We had people literally representing about 8 or 10 different ethnic groups
Culture,
around
yes.
Who live in the San Francisco Bay Area. This was in Santa Cruz.
We made some good friends, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And they were from various ethnic groups around the world, whether they were Jews from Israel or people from Asia, China, and
from the Middle East, yes.
And Hispanics, and because that is what is needed. We need to show that we are a multicultural society and we have so much to share with each other. And it ended up being just a sharing session.
I am so glad you brought that up, because that is really the overarching objective that I have. It started off, I get a foot in the door because of the Indian civilization part. But what I do is I branch out into this inclusivity, where I keep explaining to them that being Hindu is really seeing the oneness in all beings. That is really, that it's not being exclusive, it is being inclusive, and knowing. And of course, I mean, this is not what I can talk about in the schools, but we know that there is just one soul that we all have. We are the one soul, and we have separate bodies, which is just an illusion. So these things, but to teach in the schools, this is really what I did. I tried to bring that oneness by connecting cultures also. So whenever I spoke, there'd be little kids coming up to me at the end of class saying, miss, I do this, we do the same thing in our culture. So that was really what I wanted to see, that they could actually make that connect, that was the whole point, while I was bringing out the meaning of Hindu culture. And this was also in response to what was happening in the schools, because my son came home with a sheet, Hindu god fact sheet, in which he had all these deities, and the deities were defined. So Parvati was defined as the queen of all the elves in the sky. And that is really, so that got me started. I said, I don't know much about Hinduism, but I know that's not correct, So that's what got me started, because then I started to study and read up and understand. And my dad kept saying, you are actually, basically, you are going out there and being an ambassador, but you better know your stuff. So I said, okay, if I'm representing a community, I better know my stuff well. So that's where I began my whole study of Hinduism and Vedanta and all of that, and I've never looked back. It's just
And now that I've been in India on and off for the last 4 years, what what I find intriguing is how many festivals are celebrated by every community. We just
yeah,
had in Kerala the festival of Onam,
yeah.
and it's celebrated by every single community, Christians, Muslims, and all. It's a festival of celebrating the harvest
Harvest,
festival.
it's harvest, yeah,
It
it's
has nothing to
harvest.
do. Same thing with Baisakhi being celebrated by multiple communities. A lot of commonality, and we tend to
Lot of
forget
common.
under the name of like this little silos of religion and caste and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. That is so true. In fact, that's what it is. That in fact, even Diwali, for that matter,
Yes,
is harvest. It is a Thanksgiving,
it's a
and Lakshmi
Thanksgiving.
is yes, and Lakshmi is none other than a personification of Mother Nature and the good fortune.
The bounty,
So
exactly.
it's a bounty and abundance, right? So
Abundance.
that is what I do a workshop in the schools and I'm planning to do it now. I've been invited to do another workshop for an after-school workshop for symbolic art. So how do you symbolize things, and that's what I work with the kids. And or for that, I even have another project where I tell them that you want to talk about mischief makers in different cultures. And in that, you take, say, there's a monkey, there's a cat. In different cultures, we have different, we even have the coyote, we have the road runner. I mean, I don't know, there are all these various symbols of mischief makers, and they have in that culture they have a lot of deeper meaning, and they have a lot of significance, spiritual significance. So we use all of these elements, and so here I also explain to them what Brahma Vishnu represent different forms of energy, and how energy changes its form to perform different functions. So that's where I bring in these different, forms to show, to decode them.
What's
Behave
this?
a lot. So this is where in 2003, when I mean, I don't know why they use such strong language, but anyway, this is where in 2003 I sort of started this whole awareness about the textbooks being incorrect and misrepresenting vagere. And that's where it all began. My whole journey began with this in 2003. So I began to sort of make a noise about why things are not, and then um, so in and then I immediately that's when I first found. So when this was in the Mercury News that on a mission to educate. So that's where I first started this whole network on bringing awareness in the schools. So that was what started. And then I just putting a spotlight on. So it says putting a spotlight on the civilization, Indian history. So that's.
Wow.
So I'm glad you really. This is thanks so much. So then this involved a lot of work at that time, because then I was putting slides together. At the same time, I was writing articles in the Mercury News on teaching kids things, how to sorry, where is this? Yeah, so
Mine
there
as
is
well.
about the Hindu ritual on on housewarming. So this was another one where I would explain to them why we do things and what it is to walk to go into a home, and what is it that you do. Then we had how what is the meaning of Ganesha and why we bring Ganesha into the home. What is the whole. So this is all in the Mercury News. They were sort of inviting articles. So that's when I wrote all these articles. So that my whole, like I said, it was a multi-pronged effort, right? So I used the newspaper, the theater, the songs. I wrote a lot of songs on Indian food, like round and
Wow.
round, round and round the roti rolls around the rolling board.
Looks like you were so prepared for the pandemic 20 years ago.
So then I had, then they had, in Cupertino, you have this festival, Lunar Festival. So I had a whole stall there for India in classrooms. And then I had these kind of pictures put up saying, Indians worship many gods. Is that really true? Sort of, you know. So I had all these various misrepresentations that were put up in different ways.
We attached too much meaning to the symbol rather than to the people and who they are and what their purpose in life is, which is very sad.
That's and you know, it is true, and that is in fact in after 9/11 I wrote an article in India Currents on universal education, and that is really what. So the superintendent here in this school district had asked me to be on her diversity task force
In Saratoga.
in Saratoga. But look at this, you know, this is all political, because she got together this group, and I thought I was in a very meaningful task force where we could actually implement something. And I came up with ideas for there to be cohesiveness and things. But I found at the end of it, believe it or not, I suggested a mini museum where we take, say, a theme for the month, like humor. And then you have cartoons from across the world, so that children get to see a panoramic view. They get to see that, you know, even in Beirut, where there's war, you have humor, people, or you have dating across the world, you know. So people are the same across the world. And that's what my idea was. And when I went to the superintendent, she said, yeah, go ahead and do it in your school. And I said, I think you need to let the school know that we have decided to go ahead with this project.
Well, I mean,
and she was resisting.
It's very hard because it's a step-by-step approach, right? It's very hard to make big changes, and at least you've sowed the seeds. In our school, which was later around, maybe around the same time, in the early 2000s, in Cupertino School District at Eaton Elementary, we used to have, we had Christmas and we had Oktoberfest. The problem was we didn't have enough Germans.
Yeah.
So, and the Oktoberfest was done well, but our kids would say, what is Oktoberfest? So with the permission of the few Germans who were there, we said, how about making it an international day? And it started off as one day, and it's become like 4 days now. And children are given these passports. And every ethnicity is represented by people of that country, people who grew up in Lebanon, people who grew up in Israel, people who grew up in Mongolia, in China, in Japan. And at one time, there were like representatives from more than 35 countries.
Wow.
And different ethnic groups.
Look at that.
And one Israeli woman said, we need a booth for America, and natives also. So there were different booths. And the little kids were given passport, and to get a stamp from each booth, from each country or each group. And it was amazing, but it took a while to go there. It took several years. It started with one international day and then became like an international festival at Eton. And I hope it is continuing. I hope it's in the political battlefield now. Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, taking it a step further, when in Saratoga, on United Nations Day, October 24th, what I did in school was to have everyone dress in something that is not of your culture.
Yes. Oh, wow.
So get into someone else's shoes. That was my whole thing, that, you know, get out of your comfort zone and get into something else that you are not familiar with. So wear a hijab, wear something, and know what it feels like, and realize that, you know, it's only a dress, and there, you know, then you begin to appreciate one another much more. So we had that. We had a day when people wore dresses from different cultures and brought food from the other culture. So I said, you know, that has been, in fact, I had a radio show in 2016 called the Globasaurus Show. And called,
Globasaurus.
Right? So that was another. You did. My God, thank you, because not too many people took the time, you know. And the whole purpose was to do exactly this, that you appreciate someone else and their culture. Don't talk about your own culture. Appreciate someone else. You get to know more, and you find out more, and you become more open. And when you appreciate someone else, they automatically appreciate you. you know.
We learn from each other.
We learn from each other. And I found, you know, that you just look at it. You go into a Chinese store and you just say ni hao. Immediately they smile.
Oh, huge,
And
huge.
then you'll find that if they happen to know a Hindi word, they'll use it on you.
Yeah,
And,
at
you
least
know,
namaste.
automatically,
Yeah,
namaste. So
yeah,
then automatically you get people to just drop their hang-ups and reach out.
that's true.
So that was my whole purpose, was that let's not be so limited to what we are and make boundaries and walls around us, but be free to, you know, do something that you're not used to,
And you
familiar
know
with.
what? What people couldn't do, Corona was able to do, the coronavirus. People couldn't get out of shake hands, and now coronavirus is making us the salam and namaste, isn't it funny?
Yeah, exactly. Look at that. Exactly.
You
You have
know?
all of the things. Exactly. You
Yeah,
know,
and
so
and that's where I see the positivity. There is a positive side to the challenges we are all facing. Once we understand that we're a global community, it's not like that group is doing this to us and these groups are doing that to us. Then we start seeing meaning. It's not
yeah.
about it's not about somebody's superior, somebody's inferior. It's about the fact that we are in it all together, not just as
Yeah.
human beings, but as living beings. And this may sound preachy, but the reality is it is possible to understand. There are so many cross-cultural marriages that are happening all over the world now. It's definitely all over the US and even in India. This caste system, for example, people are getting out of those thoughts to appreciate each other, to appreciate the cultural roots of different communities.
I think so. I mean, that's definitely happening. In fact, you know, I know that Mahatma Gandhi is not too many people feel so kindly towards him today, but I do have a thing that, you know, says it is possible to live together, you know, in peace. One of his badges. And I just like the idea, you know, that we can live together in peace. That is one thought. But I want to show you something, you know, as talking about the uh, symbolic art workshop that I did with the children. What I do is I show Mahatma Gandhi with 3 heads, 5 arms, and camel's legs. And I show him sort of crushing the crown, and so basically what I'm doing is I'm helping the children understand how to read symbolic pictures. And that's when I take them to the forms of gods in India, and I tell them, now look at them with your mind's eye. Don't look at it with your own eyes. You know, Mahatma Gandhi was not you know, strong figure. He was a frail man, but why have I shown him with a tiger's body? Is to show that he had the strength and the courage to fight, fearlessness, whatever. And, you know, so see no evil, speak no evil, and hear no evil. So there's Om here. The sword that he's holding represents fight with truth, peace, and love. So it's just, you know, I had all these various symbols put in here. And the whole idea was to then ask the children to make pictures using only symbols. So don't, you know, to say, for example, show love, but without using the word love, and without using a heart, but show love and show abstract ideas. And it's amazing. But you know, the best part was through this whole this workshop, I discovered what children were thinking and feeling. And there was this one child who drew a rose, and this rose, beautiful rose, with a dog that's trying to climb the rose. Another dog on the
Wow.
other side. Okay, another dog on the other side trying to climb the rose. A third dog floating in a river below the rose. Okay, so it was like there was this water flowing there and there was this dog. So I called her up and I said, what are you trying to say here? And she said that Rose is my mother. The dog in the water is my father who died.
Oh my
And
God.
these are all these dogs who are all trying to get to my mother. And I just showed this picture to the principal. I said, you know, this is what's going on here. And she was so grateful. She said, I'm so glad you showed this. Similarly, another child drew a picture of a man, a stick figure, and on a blob, and another little stick figure on another blob, and a plane on top. And I said, what is this? So he said, that's my dad in another state, and I'm flying there and back and there and back all the time. So, they're all expressing themselves through pictures, and it really helps them understand how, how you can actually express yourself. So that is a workshop which I used to do for a long time, and it really was quite amazing. I want to show you something else, and that that Globosaurus is what I really am now working with. So
Wow.
I've expanded from the Indosaurus to the Globosaurus,
Which is necessary, this is the whole purpose of inclusivity. Now, what's interesting is I like the way this interview is not, he's going completely out of the box. You're going from one room to another.
Room to another. So let me sing you my song, which I should share
Yes,
with
please.
you. And you can always edit it. Round and round the roti rolls around the rolling board. Flip it up and flop it down upon the burning stove. Roast it, toast it, stuff it, puff it, tear it, share it, soak it. Jai to the roti, the roti. Jai to the roti, the roti. My nani takes some salan and she puts it in some roti. My dadi takes some sabzi and she puts a little roti. My mashi takes some bindi, it's a little bit of roti. Jai to the roti, the roti. so I sang the song. And I took this to the kindergarten classes where the children are ashamed of their Indian food. And I would actually make the roti while singing it. And believe it or not, my niece, who used to be ashamed to take Indian food to school, her friends started asking her every day, is that a roti you got? So she would ask her mom to give her rotis in the box, so
to share it.
That was the whole idea.
Wow.
Yeah, that was the whole idea. That my whole purpose was to bring pride in whatever we have without being preachy, but in a fun way. That was the whole idea. That so.
When the integration, exactly what you're saying, Mona, when the integration began in a big way in Cupertino schools, our kids got so interested in our neighbors. Many of them are from Asian countries like China, Taiwan, Hong Kong, many other countries, right? Some of which have merged since then. And it was interesting, they took Mandarin as the second language.
Wow.
And they said, we'll learn Spanish on our own, and they did. But learning Mandarin and appreciating a culture that not many of us are familiar with. At the same time, it's one of the largest in the world. And
exactly.
Later, my son learned Swahili and other languages and lived in Africa. Again,
wow.
It is important for all of us to understand that our culture is not the only one, and there is so much plurality that humans can live in different ways in different styles, and we have the same emotions, the same common humanity.
Absolutely, and that you can actually communicate with so many people when you open up your ability to speak.
One of the things that shifted for me, and I'm sure Mona, you have the same thing. I can say hello in 75 languages, and I'm sure you can do it in many languages. Maharaba.
Not 75, but I would love to. But at least when I'm traveling, I make it a point to speak in their language, and when I come back, I tend to forget. I must say, I am ashamed to say that, but when I'm there, I think you're right.
That at least saying ni hao, right, as I said, ni hao.
Yeah, and it feels great, right? Even in where in Turkey. I went around, and I would also say that the food is great. Laziz, Aziz, Laziz.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was those. I don't even remember the word anymore, but it was great because they would feel so happy when you appreciate the food. I think that is all.
They will give you an extra something because they appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, they just, I think you just, that little thing, gesture, and people feel,
And in Carmel, there's an amazing Italian restaurant. And all that I told them was multi grazie, and they give a free dessert to a group of 10 people. I'm like, no, no, no.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, because the owner said, I mean, they're the first one to say thank you in Italiano. So
That's amazing. Look at that. What a big thing it
because
is. It's a
people
big thing.
love that somebody
Yeah.
appreciates, or just saying merci beaucoup. Just
Yeah.
a few
Yeah.
words here, a few words there. Danke schön, or
Makes such a big difference.
terima
Yeah.
kasih. And the way I remember terima kasih, which is the Indonesian Malaysian, is terima kasih chali gayi.
I know, it's so funny because we have to make those associations, quick associations. Somehow. I know, exactly.
Like marhaba is like meherbani hogi, But again,
but I'm sure that's what gets you the goodwill. I mean, because you're opening yourself
when
up
I came to the United States, I had to change my name. You probably don't know my real name at all. My real name, my birth name is Vijaykar, and I was working soon after graduation, and I was working on 3D graphics, video editing, 3D graphics, and creating the technology, the hardware behind it. And my friends at work started at Intel, started going, "Oh, you're Video Shankar. That's why you're so good at video." I was 26.
Oh my God.
They're calling me Mr. Video. I got a little ticked off. So I removed video and became Shankar.
Oh, I see.
And later again, it's not.
But that's also a journey. That's a journey.
It's not even prejudice. Sometimes people do it for fun. It's an uncommon name. I mean, how many people can spell names like Vidya Shankar or Karuna Ratne? There's these long names sometimes, right? From different cultures.
Actually, you're so right, because here I am, in this, with my attitude, I'd go, "Oh, you should be proud of your Indian name." And then somebody once asked me, "What is your name?" And I just realized, I said, "Oh, I have a very Western sounding name." And no wonder it's been easier for me. So I could actually, but for me, it was an Indian name, right? I never thought of it as a Western name. And people did ask me, did you change your name when you came to this country and things?
Wow.
But
Interesting.
I didn't even think of it, until somebody asked me that, "Ma'am, what is your name?" And I said, "Oh, it's Mona." So
even I thought you had shortened your name because that's so common.
Yeah.
I thought you had shortened your name.
But Mona is very common in America, in India. Mona is quite common.
Yeah.
I have a lot of Gujarati friends called Mona also. So
that's true.
Yeah, so Mona is actually
all these biases that we have, all these conditioning that we have. This is Indian, this is not Indian, this is American, and this is not all American, as we call it. So there's so much we can all learn, and every day to be more human again, to be people of this one earth. And if nothing else, this pandemic has shown us how interconnected we are.
We needed something.
Times are still very challenging for a lot of people. And I'm so glad you've done all this work in terms of bringing different groups together, reducing prejudice. And we are again at that same point where we are going against each other, finger pointing. The Black Lives Matter movement has started because of a lot of the bias and the suffering of people over centuries. And there are so many other movements in India. We are starting to see the Dalit life matters. And there's a lot of, again, emotion. What do you suggest? How can people open their minds? Or is it possible for us to live in harmony?
I think, it may be simplistic for me to say this, but I think it all begins in school. We have to, our teachers, when we start, because look at our children, they are the ones, I may think I'm very open-minded, but it's my kids who really made me more open-minded, because, they would catch me and they'd call me out on things that I was probably being very prejudiced about, and may not be serious prejudice, but we do have it. We come with certain conditioning, and certain ideas. So they would then call me out on that, and I'd realized that they were the ones who sort of made me open up and open my eyes to different things. So I think the kids, new generation, they're the ones who need to be taught to be open. And I think, first of all, subscribing to a particular religion and things, I feel is so wrong, because when I say I'm not a Hindu, I'm trying to be Hindu. I'm working towards being Hindu. I may be born into a family, but that's not my, the choice I make is a lifestyle choice. It's not about a religious choice. So if the lifestyle defines being Hindu, that's, and I have a song, by the way, which I want to sing for you.
Please, please.
Can I just... Namaste, namaste, namaste to you. It means that I bow to the same God in you. For God is the word that we use to describe that invisible power who runs through our life. That power we know is the live energy who takes every shape, every form that we see. Energy, oh energy, you are the super God. Energy, oh energy, you are the super God. Energy takes, energy does many things at one time. It generates life, G, operates O, and destroys D. Energy, oh energy, you are the super God. Namaste, namaste, namaste to you. It means that I bow to the same God in you. That's what I used to teach the kids.
I'll have to come up with a term to describe what you're doing. How about we call you the geek of days? God.
Geek off.
You're like, you become a geek of Hindu mythology, interpreting it in so many different ways, symbolic
Different
ways.
way. Yeah,
Women,
because I'm trying to sort of get out of that the archaic way of repeating the same thing where it's lost its meaning or it's taken on a totally different meaning. And so now when you say God, you think of so many things that you don't want to.
well, the sad part is that the word God has become a curse.
It's become a
Um,
curse.
yeah,
It just,
Jesus.
so you
I mean,
don't want
it's so
to.
sad, isn't it? Because it was supposed to mean our higher self or the truth within
Yeah.
us or the kindness that we experience. And taking such a holy name and changing it to something that's like a cuss word, I feel
That's
it's a sacrilege. I feel we are hurting ourselves.
Yeah, but that's what has happened, right? It's evolved that way. So that's why we need to use some different vocabulary to bring the meaning more than trying to repeat and keep perpetuating the same old ways of explaining. And that's why I moved away from a lot of my I learned a lot from my Vedanta teachers, but I moved away because I didn't want to get locked into any one uh, group. I didn't want to be associated with any one particular group. I just wanted to be free of all that and not
I,
have to.
I,
Shiva Parvati represent gross and subtle forms of energy. And when the gross and subtle forms of energy come together, they give birth to all forms of life.
I did
And
not
that
know
is what,
that. I
yeah.
didn't realize
So
that.
yeah, so Shiva and Parvati are just energy in its two forms.
I
And
had no idea. Thank you
when
for this lesson for me. Really.
absolutely. No, and many of us, even I didn't know until I read up and I said, my goodness, these are all forms of energy. And so Shiva and Parvati, when two forms, the subtle and the gross, come together, that's when you have life. And all organic life is represented by Ganesha and the mouse, basically representing the largest and the tiniest of life forms.
Wow.
And Gana itself means the groups of life, living beings. So Ganas Ganas are all living beings, and Isha is the life form, the living principle, which pervades all life.
We need to
So
do a
Gana
session
Isha.
just on this to understand the significance of the mythology, because I interpreted Shiva and Parvati's dialogue more like a husband-wife, and arguing and
That's the
things
whole.
like that.
Hey, that's
Because that's how
yeah,
it was taught to us. And this is funny
exactly.
because having been a teacher in Chinmaya Mission, I did not realize some of the subtler things that you're talking about.
And these things, when it hits you, you changes your whole life perspective, because now you see everyone as a form, as a gana, and the same Isha is flowing within you and me. We are the same being, essentially, with different forms, in different forms. So
I had no clue about the subtleties of the Shiva and the Parvati image. And many of
yeah,
us, having grown up even for 20, 30 years in India, sometimes are not sure because it's a verbal tradition, right? It goes by
yeah,
word of mouth. And the written books sometimes are just one version of it or another version of it. As somebody
yeah,
said that in the Bhakti tradition, it's about just belief and what do you call surrender and love.
surrender.
But
Yeah,
in the Jnana tradition, it's about understanding and discernment and ascending towards meaning and thought. So they're very different traditions. And the Karma tradition, it's all about service. So
so
and
actually
they're not separate.
they're not even different, they're not separate.
They're
It
not separate.
actually it's a sequence. So I would say that when I was doing all my work, I was doing the karma yoga, and
Yes.
then through that I got knowledge through experience, so it became
Yeah, yeah.
jnana yoga, and from jnana I surrendered,
We
because
go back
now
to
it is just
Bhakti.
pure bhakti now. So
Yeah.
bhakti is not possible unless you have arrived at that, right, where you have total trust and faith that nothing can go wrong,
Yeah,
nothing
it's
is
like what many people say, come to Jesus. That'll only happen if you really understand the significance and what happened during the lifetime of Jesus Christ and all the things that have come about it. Otherwise, it doesn't work in many cases because people are not willing to surrender. It's the
no,
same
you
thing in
can't.
every tradition. It's
Yeah.
difficult to surrender.
And actually, even Jesus, I didn't mean to cut you short, but then it's a title, it's issue. Right. Ishu
Isha.
is Jesus is the anglicized name for Isha, and Isha is the living principle. So
That's true.
that is the,
That's the
so
symbolism.
Jesus also is symbolism. It is symbolic. Jesus was a person for sure, but he represented the divine being, which is Isha.
Yeah,
And
that's
that
true.
Isha is the living principle, the same Isha that is within each of us. So when we say Jesus is in us too, we can say the same thing. It's all the same.
And I can tell you
It's
many, many words. Entrepreneur, which has Latino or origins, antarprerana.
yeah,
The, the,
yeah.
the what do you call the
Well, yeah,
prerana,
it
the
could be,
inspiration
but
that
this
comes from
is,
within.
yeah, it's amazing how, actually it's not even the commonality. Basically, we were the same people who have moved
Diverse.
out, and so we are all speaking different, we're using different words to say the same thing,
Exactly,
right?
exactly. And that's
Right.
what comes out again and again when you look at languages, the roots of languages, whether it's
In fact,
Latino.
that's what I teach in the schools. I show them a map of the world, and I say, okay, when you see Sanskrit, the word pitr, pitr then evolves into pidar, pedar, patar, and it becomes father. So it's a whole evolution. We are all saying the same word,
All connected.
but it's all connected. In Sanskrit, it's pitr, and in English, it becomes father. But it has
Mata,
evolved.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
It's,
evolved. The
yeah.
words have evolved,
From each
and
other.
we don't
Sometimes
know
it
that.
goes this way, sometimes it goes that way, but so
Yeah,
much.
so much evolution. So
My computer
that's
has become Kanputer. In
that's
television in Japan, they call it televi. or
Really?
even sexual harassment. I know in Japan they call it sekuhara. So,
Really?
yeah. So
That's so
because
funny.
again, it's like you can't
It
invent
goes
new
around.
words. You can't invent
Yeah,
new
new
words for
words.
everything. So we adapt from each other. Did you know that the Arabs ruled Spain for a few hundred years, and there are
Yeah,
more than a
yeah.
thousand words from Arabic that have made it into Espanol, such as
Spaniel.
Caliph,
Okay.
Caliph,
Yeah.
Caliph.
Khalif, yeah.
There are many words like
So
that.
many words, yeah. I
And
mean,
I
it's
know.
fascinating when you go into this. It's just fascinating, you know. For example, Catholic. Okay, Catholic is anglicized, right? CA is sir. THO is there. Sadhulika.
Oh my
A
God.
Sadhulika person is a Catholic. So
And
it's
and Pagan becomes Bhagwan.
pagan,
Pagan, Pagan.
pagan,
So
pagan. Yeah.
there are so many, I mean, it's just amazing. Some of it may not be 100% accurate, but we see so many similarities from cultures literally around the world. That's the way it's easy to learn about cultures, and it
Yeah,
really
yeah,
makes us humbler. It makes us simpler,
definitely.
and understanding the
That's the point.
commonality.
That's the point. It makes you humbler because
That is actually symbolic in psychology of the chrysalis, that we can actually change our minds. We can change the way we think about things. We actually do change over time. Like 30 years ago, the Mona that you were and the Mona you are today
totally,
are quite very
totally.
distinctly different. And so is the Shankar. I used to be Vidya Shankar, now I'm Shankar or Sean, right? It's not just the label, but also my hair is different and my looks
Yeah,
are
your body
different.
has gone through so many changes.
The
Yeah,
metamorphosis
absolutely.
continues. So moment to moment, there's change, impermanence. To me, even impermanence is a form of reincarnation where you just
It
don't
is.
know.
In fact, just to one last thing, I know you have something. So the Nataraja
Uh-huh.
shows that's the dance of Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva in every cell of our bodies. In every cell, this dance is going on, that generating, operating, degenerating, generating, operating, degenerating,
That's true.
regenerating. And that
Wow.
cycle is happening in every cell of our body. So this is Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva and this, even Kafka has written about this, right? It is the dance of energy which is reincarnating perpetually in every cell, every
Wow.
that's going on within us. And that is what Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva is. That is God within us, you
And
know.
that's again
Uh,
in the Buddhist terminology, they call about, the beginning of desire. Like, when you have a desire in marketing terminology, it's like, I want that. It's so good. It's like akara. The next one is ukara. Ooh, I love it. And I want it to sustain. I'm satisfied. So that becomes your om. And there's so many, because the funny thing is that I don't believe that these things were they came out of thin air. They came out of people's experiences. A child
of course,
putting
of
its mouth,
course.
and the mother knows that the child could be hungry.
Yeah. No,
And the
you have.
child, yeah,
If you go through the Upanishads, it's fast. If you understand Om, if you read the Upanishads, and in fact, better still from a guru, a good guru, we were really lucky that in the last 12 years, I've been studying Vedanta with teachers at Arshavidya and things. They have really explained it in such a beautiful way that it really clears everything for you, that you realize you have answers to everything, that okay, that's it. Now you don't really need to question anything anymore,
and then, in the Bay Area, we were so fortunate. There was the Sufi traditions at the Institute of Transpersonal Psychology. So I got to know the details of the Sufi tradition and why do they dance the dervishes and how it
Oh,
transforms life, which comes very close to the Garba traditions in India and the evangelical
okay.
dances, like when you're really ecstatic, singing and dancing. In any
Huh.
tradition, you'll see
In
that
all
circle
traditions, yeah,
dancing.
we have that. Yeah,
People
yeah,
have circle
yeah.
dances in the Jewish traditions. There are circle dances in every single tradition. In Africa, we have this Ubuntu and people sitting together, sharing things together, Hakuna Matata, and letting
Yeah,
go
yeah.
and
It's
accepting
all there
things.
in the, even the Native American tradition. There is that knowledge is already there. It's just being
Understanding.
uncovered. Yeah, that understanding was there, and it's now being uncovered through, you know,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
structured learning.
yeah.
So
I
I
so
know, I know.
appreciate how much wisdom you're bringing into the world. And as you said, you've learned some of these things here and there. You're using your design thinking and you're thinking out of the box to see how we can use the symbolism in a meaningful way. So, see you all again. If you have stories to share, please come forward. We want to learn about different cultures, different places on earth, and things that make us actually the togetherness. We talk about being the individual, but it's really the indivisible duo. And to find that we're all, in some ways, there's so much oneness, there's so much that makes us vibrant, that makes us alive, and how can we all connect together? So with that, we'll say goodbye to everyone out there, and
Thanks,
thank you
and
for
good
being
luck
with
to
us.
you. Looking forward to all your next shows.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.